Dynasty Nerds on Better Sports Network.
What did I tell you guys? Thursday nights are the best nights for sports. We had the Hall of Fame game last week. We've got the kickoff of the real preseason starting tonight. Look, I'm telling you guys, Thursday nights is where it's at. There's a reason that we're here live on Thursday nights. Welcome back, guys. It's Dynasty Nerds. It is the Better Sports Network, and we've got an awesome show planned for tonight. So, Dated Fork, how's it going? My guy from Monday Night Rants, Edward Rouse. Good to see you, buddy. We've got an awesome show planned for tonight. One, obviously, we've got to talk a little bit of preseason. It's the start of the preseason. We're going to be talking about that with Dennis Bennett. We're going to be talking about the Fantasy Football Expo as well. If you're not familiar with it, it is an incredible, incredible time in the Hall of Fame city of Canton, Ohio. That is going on this weekend. So Dennis and I are going to talk about that a little bit. But my boy Peter, last time Peter came on, things got crazy. Now, I have a couple of things planned for Peter joining us tonight. Oh, Peter even messaged, nice haircut. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Look, last time Peter came on, things got wild. So at some point, we might abandon everything we're talking about just to talk about whatever comes up in Peter's mind or in Peter's life or in Peter's world, because he is the Dosaki's most interesting man in the world. Michael Anthony says preseason and Dynasty Nerds know better Thursday. That's right. Just Josh, how's it going, homie? Sedated Fork says flying to Vegas tomorrow. Try to sneak in some hot tips if you can. Okay. I think I can make that happen. Well, especially, in that period in between guests, we can talk, my man. We can talk. Absolutely. But Peter and I are also the one thing that I do for sure have planned that I would like to talk to him about is this dispersal draft. Now, this is something that many people might not be overly familiar with. It's a little bit different of a concept, but we just did one, actually. We just did this with some of the guys in the Dynasty Nerds Invitational League. So we're going to talk about Peter's draft, how he did, how the board fell, and that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to talk about what dispersal drafts are, what it means, all that kind of stuff. So Tyler says that he's ready to go. I don't think we need to waste any more time. Peter, how's it going, my man?
It's going great. I just got back from Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard.
Whoa, look at you.
And came home realizing that there's fleas everywhere.
Oh, no.
And yeah, or poor cat. But we're getting it figured out.
So Edward says that you're working on a new intro song for him, and it's your African a cappella choir. Is this a true story?
It's not. So he wants it to be. I would love it to be, but there might be a couple people that might be dead. I don't know. I don't know if we can resurrect this
in more ways than one.
Yeah. Other side of the country, there's a lot of things that need to go right, but I'm willing to give it a try but let's see. I don't think I keep in contact with any of my choir buddies anymore. So
now, why is that? Was there a big falling out? Is there a big story that I need to know about?
No, it was just homeschool people growing up.
I was hoping there was like some dramatic twist, some dramatic story that we could talk
about. No, I'm sorry to disappoint you. But
all right.
But yep. Let's talk football.
Let's talk some football, Peter. You recently were a part of a dispersal draft. Now, Peter, Have you ever done a dispersal draft before?
I did in the Dynasty Nerds Give Back
League.
I was a part of a dispersal draft there. And this is the magic of dispersal drafts is the player pool is really weird and there's not 12 teams to draft from. I was able to get Jamar Chase and Justin Fields.
Wow.
Back to back. I had the turn and it's
right.
Flex. So everyone drafted quarterbacks and I was like, okay, I'll take it.
There you go.
And I'll be happy about it.
That's pretty awesome. You had a pretty nice start too. You got the turn here, the back turn.
Yep.
Okay. I'm messaging with Tyler here, Heavy T. We're actually gonna get this put up on the screen at some point. We're not gonna do it just yet, but we'll get this put up so that way people can kind of see what it looked like. But let me explain quickly for everyone what a dispersal draft is if you've never been a part of it. So hopefully when you start your league, when you start a dynasty league, everyone is fully committed no matter what till the day that they die. But realistically, that doesn't always happen. And you have some people that drop off. Sometimes it's for, really good reasons. Like, man, like my life is just, I can't focus on football, like it happens. Sometimes it's just like, yeah, I'm just bored and I don't really want to play in this league anymore. Sometimes the worst reason is, and they'll never say this, but there were a couple teams in this league where this happened, where the teams are just terrible. And they're like, yeah, I don't want to have to suffer through how bad of a job I did with this team. So I just give up, more or less. So you have all of those different reasons. But then what you do is you take all of the teams that want to. So any team that's a vacant team or any team that just looks at their team and says, I kind of just want to start over from scratch. That happened in this league too. So we had 4 total teams in this dispersal draft. And you take every possible asset that those teams have. So all of the players, but also all of the picks, which is where it can get really interesting because you're drafting like into the future picks as well. So trying to evaluate where you draft a pick versus a player, all of it can get really, really interesting. So Peter, before we show the board, how did you feel going into it? And how do you feel like you did in the process?
Oh man. So going into it, I misread the board. So going into it, I thought that I could go heavy on quarterback, which is always a good idea. But I didn't realize how steep the drop off was on tight end. So I'm currently entering this league with
you basically what happened. I almost messaged you. I didn't, but what you and Dennis did to me in the all-time draft is almost what happened to you in this draft.
Yep. And but so I'm so used to like getting later round tight ends that I really like. But yeah, I get Gerald Everett as my starting tight end now, which is and it's not fine. It's pretty bad. But I got Gerald Everett, okay, Irv Smith, and then Logan Woods,
Logan Woods,
Robert Woods, Thomas. My bad. I saw Robert Woods.
I was like, wait, who is Logan Woods?
Whoops, Logan Woods. Both of them combined will average about 5 PPR points per game.
There you go.
And then a Noah Gray, which I actually don't mind,
just in case
a late round pick.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's go ahead and show the board, Tyler. If you wouldn't mind putting up this little draft board that I made on Google Sheets, and I don't know,
Logan Woods. Is that Wolverine?
No, he's Logan
Woods. Logan Woodside is a quarterback.
Oh, there you go. All right. So the way it worked is we went snake just like you normally would, and all of the players were listed on the left-hand side. Once they were selected, they automatically got taken away. So draft started off. Matt took Patrick Mahomes. Dave took Josh Allen. Rich took Justin Herbert. So then you were at the turn. Tell us your thought process here at the turn.
I mean, there wasn't a lot of a thought process. Just looking at ADP and just the value there, you get Lawrence and Fields, and I'm not even that. So to be honest, I was tempted by the 101 here.
Well, I was going to ask you, was Bijan in the realm of possibility for you?
So here's the crazy thing: is it wasn't Bijan who I would be drafting here. I would draft Anthony Richardson ahead of Justin Fields.
So you are all in on Richardson. I mean, if you're taking him over Bijan, you're all in.
That's true. I wanted to have a young quarterback. Like I didn't quite know where my team was going at that point. So in my mind, I want a quarterback. And if I had to pick between Fields and Anthony Richardson, I would have gotten Richardson. Value-wise, I would have probably drafted Robinson and then try to trade for Richardson plus. Sure. And ultimately, that's kind of my goal with Fields, is to try to trade maybe him for like a Dak plus or something like that. But the value is too good there.
Yeah.
So, and he'll be good this year. He'll be great. So,
all right. So then Bijan or potentially Anthony Richardson went off the board next. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Daniel Jones. Like the top of this is still looking pretty nice. Then Travis Kelce goes off the board, Chris Olave, Drake London, and then you got CMC here. So tell me about what you were thinking as far as youth versus win now, how much that played into the equation for you, because this seemed like a really good value.
Yeah, and so when it comes to these drafts, whether it's a dispersal draft or a startup or even a rookie draft, I mostly, especially when it's the first 3 picks, I draft almost exclusively off of value because I don't want to enter a draft thinking, okay, it's going to be like I'm going to be young or I'm going to go full contending mode, because you can't predict what picks you're going to get. So here with Christian McCaffrey falling, even though it kind of did put me in a weird spot because CMC is a contender play, but he does offer enough value that if I wanted to rebuild, I can, and I can trade him away for value to a contender. So that was my mindset. Just too good of a value. I loved him.
No, I agree. I was surprised he didn't go sooner, to be honest, but I get it. I understand what everyone else was doing, but it did surprise me quite a bit. So then you get 105, which we've already had our rookie draft. So you can tell everybody who you took with the 105.
Yeah, I took JSN because I don't. So first off, I'm a Seahawks fan, as you can tell by my Mariners jersey. I do not have any shares of him in any league. Yeah, so because I mostly traded back from the 105, 105, 106, just for future capital. So I just wanted him. And side note, let me say this really fast. So what the perk of what I did is I get value. But if you look at Rich's team, he came in with 101, and even at this point, I'm pretty sure he was in the mindset of going young.
Yeah, it looks like
so so getting the 101, getting Drake London, and then you see him getting all the picks and stuff. There is a perk to coming in with that mindset of I'm just going to go youth and picks. And so that's something with Dispersal Draft. But yeah, JSN, I'm excited to maybe watch him tonight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, pull him up while we're hanging out, man. If you see him make a big play, we'll throw it up on the screen. But right after that, then Kenny Pickett went, Christian Watson, Cooper Kupp. So Matt going full on win now. TJ Hawkinson, Jahan Dotson, and then
that wouldn't hurt.
Then this is what surprised me. I'm shocked it took this long for the 2024 firsts to start going off the board, because with the exception of potentially Matt's team, none of these teams are probably going to compete for a ship. And with guys out there like Marvin Harrison Jr., Caleb Williams, Drake May, Brock Bowers, I really thought the 24 firsts were going to be a hotter commodity. But the first one finally went off the board after Dotson, after Hawkinson in a non-tight end premium, after Christian Watson and Kenny Pickett, like after all those guys. I thought for sure, because I loved your draft up to this point. I thought you did a fantastic job. But then right here, I was like, oh, he's definitely taking one of these first. And you didn't. And I was shocked. So tell me why you think Calvin Ridley and Michael Pittman Jr. were the better options over the 24 firsts.
So I got greedy. And sometimes you take a swing and you miss. So in my mind, I can, if I have Christian McCaffrey as my RB1, your RB2, as long as he's a starter, doesn't have to matter too much.
And at this point, it still could have been even Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah. So then with Ridley, I'm like, okay, he can be wide receiver 1. I kind of bought into the training camp hype, which is something I've been trying to not do. Michael Pittman as my wide receiver 2, or JSN as my wide receiver 3. That's a really
good wide receiver core. Yeah.
It's a good wide receiver core. So in my mind, I forgot how fast
the drop off was.
This dispersal draft drops off. So that was my mess up here. I love Pittman. I would trade a 2024 first for Pittman. Ridley is the pick that strikes me as kind of a aggressive contender move, which I look at my team now and I'm firmly in the middle.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much that's actually going to help.
Yeah.
Me.
So after those two guys, now I like both of those players. I don't have any issue with that, but just knowing that all of these teams, with the exception of one coming in, were non-playoff teams. One of these teams had the 101. One of these teams had the 103, or would have had the 103 if they hadn't traded it. And one of these teams had the 105. There's probably not going to be many contenders coming out of this. Now, right after that, Rich then took one of the other 24 firsts. Then Russell Wilson went off the board, which I thought was pretty good value, seeing where Kenny Pickett went. And then Matt, despite being the contender, went with the value, and he called your bluff a little bit, saying, I don't know if Peter's going all in. So he took your first round pick. And then Mike Williams, of course, because he loves Mike Williams. Dave went more of a win now move with Derrick Henry. James Cook went. So when you get to 201 and 203 that you picked here, which I have no problem with these picks, but was Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, James Conner, were those guys possibilities for you here when you were thinking I might still be able to be a win now team?
Yeah. So right there, I was like, everyone kind of sucks. No. And that's where it's kind of the whole stay water thing is very good. Sometimes it can kind of bite you a little bit though, because all of a sudden you kind of panic a little bit. And so in my mind, and it actually turned out pretty good for me. I drafted Charbonnet and Mingo,
which are great selections,
which I was super happy with where I got. So in my mind at 201, I drafted thinking, okay, I could get Charbonnet here. And having McCaffrey and Charbonnet with Walker's injury, I'm actually super concerned about that.
I am too. They're downplaying it, but I'm a little worried as well. He's not been a guy that's been he already dealt with some injuries last year, and Pete Carroll is always a little too optimistic for my taste. So,
well, and it was the same injury. It was a groin injury, and the same thing happened last year with Carroll being like, "Oh yeah, it's fine, everything's gonna be cool, man." So I'm actually buying into Charbonnet this year. So in my mind, okay, I can still contend. And 2 or 3, I was hoping to get Mingo, and I got him here. So, I'm really happy with the players, but strategy wise, this is where I start kind of ending up in the middle of the GM.
And it's a tough spot because I'm with you. I like taking whoever I believe is the best asset, regardless if I'm win now, not. I like trying to take just the best asset, but yeah, it can be tricky. So then 205 went off the board next. Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, who we mentioned, James Conner, David Njoku, Rashad Bateman, and then Peter, you went back to the well. So you started off a little bit more win now with guys like Christian McCaffrey, Calvin Ridley, but now you've kind of embraced a little bit more of the not rebuild, but planning ahead kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was looking, and in my thinking, I want to be able to trade these 2024 picks for vets. In my mind, I was still thinking contender. So I was like, okay, can I send a 2024 second for a Hopkins? Or like a player like in that range that could be a rental? So that was my thinking process. I look at with Sutton there, Michael Thomas, Brian Robinson, all these are question marks. So in my mind, I could either trade them for vets or I can just hold them and they'll gain value there. So
yeah,
I was actually pretty happy with those picks.
Absolutely. So then we get to David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. So what were you thinking through here? Because I was with you the whole time. Honestly, the only time I wasn't with you was when you didn't take your first, because that's something that I would have really wanted to have as an insurance policy no matter what. Because if you're a contender, you can always trade away your first and get a player. If not, then you've got that to like fall back on if things don't work out. So other than not drafting your first, I was with you the whole time. Here's where I was like, I get it if he's trying to win now, but the picks are throwing me off. So why go kind of back into a win now with Montgomery and Herbert?
So once again, it's entering this realm of value. So example, David Montgomery, then the next couple picks for 209, 2024 second, which did Baker Mayfield really go right there?
Yeah.
Was that really how big the drop-off was?
Yeah. It went from Khalil Herbert, 209, 2024 second, and then Baker Mayfield, Kate Otten, Darnell Mooney.
So in my mind, Montgomery is worth around a second, 2024 second. And I actually really like him this year. And so just as a contender, if I'm not a contender, just the value that he could bring to a contender, I'm thinking, okay, I can get more than a second from him. The Herbert pick was one of those picks that we've seen it in small bursts. He kind of reminds me of a little bit. I'm not great at player comps, but kind of like a Khalil.
Kind of like a Khalil Herbert. They remind me of each other.
Tony Pollard. Kind of like a Tony Pollard, where it's like they always shine when they're the backup, and now this is his time to maybe take over the job. So those are my thoughts. I look back at that, and I would have probably gone that 2024 second
to help those that are watching.
Herbert.
That was my first or my second round pick, and my team is in more of like a contender mode. So for what it's worth,
most are though when it's
what's
your
that?
Teams. Most are when it's your teams though. You're pretty
I'm
good.
all
at
in,
this
baby.
thing.
I'm all in. Although this league, I've been like last year, my team was dominant. Like I was like 12-2 in the regular season. Get gooked. I didn't even make it to the ship. Like I lost before the ship.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
That's been my luck in this league every year. Make the playoffs every year, dominant team. Something happens every time.
Sedated fork. I was not actually considered that would be a smart move to have Gibbs at 105 and then Montgomery as a handcuff. The whole time I was either going to try to trade back from the 105 to the 106 to draft JSN there. Or draft JSN at the 105, but I wasn't able to move back, so I just drafted him at 105.
All right, so I don't think we're going to bother going through the rest of it. You guys can see the entirety of the rest of the draft and how it all played out. But overall, Peter, I really did like how things went for you. Like I said, the big thing for me was I wanted you to take your first. I really wanted you to get your first round pick. Didn't happen.
Control my destiny.
I would have taken all of those first, like starting in the third round, maybe even end of the second round. Like I would have been all over those because I would have been trying to suck as bad as possible and try to get myself some Caleb Williams and some Marvin Harrison. But
see, here's the thing, Garrett, is I actually have too many leagues that I'm already doing that.
that I just want to win. I'm all in. I love it. I love it.
I have too many leagues that I'm rebuilding. Or do I just suck?
Oh man. All right. Ollie Boscott asking about JT. I'm actually going to be covering him, Dobbins, a bunch of those guys in the in-between time. So starting around 9:45, I'll be taking all your trade questions and touching on those players. So tune in at that point. But Peter, here's the next thing I want to do with you. And you and I had not talked about this, but perfect. I wanted to go through and I wanted to look at the 2022 results, like how things worked out in fantasy football. And I'm going to give you a player, and I want you to tell me if you think they finish higher than this or lower than this next season. All right? So maybe even, we can maybe revisit this later and see how you did,
I love revisiting my last takes. Last year, one of my number one sells was Josh freaking Jacobs because it's Kenyon Drake.
Ooh, because of Drake. That hurts. Yep. Okay.
Right after the Hall of Fame.
Oh, Heavy T's in on this. He said he's liking this.
This is a great idea. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Are you ready? Which position would you like to start with? Do you have a preference? I'll let you choose.
Defense. DST.
All right. We'll start.
Kickers.
We'll start at the running back position. All right. Last year, Ramondre Stevenson finished overall. We're not going to do points per game, just overall as the RB7. Does he finish higher or lower than that in 2023?
Lower. It's easier to predict. Like historically, finishing as an RB1 is back-to-back is really hard to do. And I think that there'll be more of a passing game for the Patriots this year, which, I mean, who knows, might result in a better offense. But there were a couple of running backs, like Breece Hall going out and Javonte Williams, and even like players like J.K. Dobbins that I think are more talented than Ramondre. They're still recovering from injury, obviously, but I think that last couple of years, they were kind of down years for the star running backs. So I still view him as an RB1 who could finish as, that
sure,
high again.
but maybe closer to 10, 11 or something like that.
RB10, RB12.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Ooh, Dalvin Cook to the Patriots.
I'd be
okay,
sick.
Josh.
All right. Let's go. I'm going to give you two guys back to back in finishes last year. We'll start with the one at 14, Najee Harris. Does he finish higher or lower? There's a lot of buzz around Jaylen Warren, though the Warren hive is hot. Does he finish higher or lower than RB14?
Okay. Let me tell you about Jaylen Warren.
All right.
Okay. Steelers fans don't even like Jaylen Warren as much as fantasy football players like Jaylen Warren. I do not get it. I'm sure he's a great guy. He's good at pass blocking, and he has some nice plays. But Najee Harris is the RB1 on that team. He will have the volume, and he will finish higher than RB14.
I'm with you. I think he does as well.
Write it down.
I think he does as well. All right. Miles Sanders at running back 15. Does he finish higher or lower than running back 15 this year?
Oh, it's hard because I really like RB15.
That's a good spot.
Yeah, because he'll have some good games. He'll probably be injured for 3 or 4 of them. Can he get the passing work while also somehow keeping his ability to be a goal line back? There's a lot of questions there. I would say, if I had to say, which I do have to say,
you do,
lower. Because just looking historical numbers with rookie quarterbacks, you usually have a little bit lower offensive
easy for you to say.
Efficiency. Yeah.
All right. Last one at the running back position. Travis Etienne. He finished last year as running back 17. Higher or lower this year?
So I have a funny story about this.
Let's
Travis.
hear it.
So I don't know if all you guys know this, but I also run most of the tweets or the zeets or however they're pronounced on the Dynasty Nerd Twitter, and it was, I think, week 17 that I posted, classic engagement forming question of, is Travis Etienne a top 12 dynasty running back? And usually I'm pretty good with like picking the right number,
right?
To have some discussion. I got freaking slaughtered.
Really?
People were saying like, this is such a bad tweet. Who tweeted this? He's obviously top 5, top 6, top 7. And I was like, what am I missing?
I mean, dynasty-wise, people did love him.
Yep. I felt so good. I think it was this week's show or last week's show when you guys were talking about the Jaguars backfield and you guys were talking about it. And I was like, see, it is a good question. You guys just didn't know it yet. Yep. I would say lower. But close. Yeah. He'll still be our RB2, but yeah.
All right, let's go to the quarterback position. And I already know how Heavy T feels about this because he does not believe in this guy at all. And I'm pretty sure I know where you stand on this because last time we talked, you said you don't believe in this guy like I do. But quarterback 6, Justin Fields, higher or lower? Higher. Oh, okay.
Because let me tell you this. I know. And here's my reasoning. Redraft. Where's my camera? Okay, redraft and best ball. I love Justin Fields. He will put up points. He has no competition as quarterback. Will the Bears be good? No. For Dynasty, I am off of Justin Fields.
So you think he's losing the job? That's what you're saying.
Yeah. He's going to Tim Tebow it up, though.
Okay.
So I would love to be wrong. Because if I'm totally wrong, he's another great quarterback. I just drafted him in this league, but I think this year he does have that ceiling. He's an amazing rusher, but there's just question marks about his passing, which is fine. If
we will see, I'm a believer.
Yeah.
Number 8, Trevor Lawrence, higher or lower than quarterback 8?
Lower. Not by much, but I actually think that Jaguar team regresses a little bit.
Okay.
Ridley will be good, but Christian Kirk is not who he was last year.
Okay.
So
are you saying for fantasy purposes or like real life purposes? Okay.
For fantasy. I just think that team regresses just a little bit.
All right. Let's move over to Mr. Hard Knocks himself. Quarterback 13 last year, Aaron Rodgers. Higher or lower?
Higher. So players like Aaron Rodgers is a reason why I kind of project Lawrence to be a little bit lower. I could see Rodgers entering that top 6, top 7 world again, especially if he has a lot of depth on the Jets. Actually, one of my favorite best ball targets has been Corey Davis.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Just a little bit more. I think he's a more talented Lazard. Kind of the same prototype. So I think that he will be at least a top 10 lock. I feel the most confident about that one out of any other question so far.
All right. Let's move over to the wide receiver position. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Last year, he was wide receiver 9. Higher or lower? Oh, wait. Hold on. Actually, I put standard. Let me switch it.
Ooh, standard. Shout out to
almost
Dennis.
Messed up bad. All right. He was 7. So higher or lower than 7 for next year, Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Oh man,
Marcus, we will be there, my man. We will be there, or I'll be there. Peter, you're not coming, are you?
no, I'll miss it this year.
Bummer, but we'll get you there soon. But yes,
Yep.
I will be there, Marcus.
If I can get the push, I would love the push. And if I had to say higher, and I've
You
been
would say
saying that a
higher.
lot.
You would put him
I
at
would say
6.
higher. Yes. Yep.
Okay. I mean, he's got a chance to get off to a great start. And honestly, he would have been higher last year as well had he not been dealing with some injuries. Oh, he missed week 4. He's banged up between week 6 and 8. So had that not been the case, he probably would have been higher last year as well.
Yep.
All right.
I'm
let's
just
go.
tired of projecting him lower too. I keep getting proved wrong every year.
All right. Wide receiver 15, Brandon Ayuk. Higher or lower? The Ayuk hive has been pretty hot so far this year.
Lower. I'm not buying it.
You're
He'll be
out on
good.
Ayuk?
He'll have some. He'll have some good games, but I don't know how his play style and Purdy's play style really go together all that well.
Okay.
But
we shall see. I'm gonna go lower as well.
Yep.
I think, not that I think it's gonna be much lower, but I do think he's gonna be a little bit lower than this, just because there were some good players behind him that I think are gonna bump him down a little bit, like Cooper Kupp, Garrett Wilson. Like between injuries, being young, like I think there's some guys that'll push him down a little bit, but I don't expect him to have a worse season necessarily. Just a few guys to perform a little better.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Wide receiver 22, Jerry Jeudy. Higher or lower?
Ooh, that is a good question. I would say slightly higher.
Slightly higher?
Slightly.
So like
not a lot more.
20?
18 to 20.
Okay.
I feel good about there.
All right.
Are you buying the Sutton hype?
See, I'm a Sutton guy.
Like I love Sutton.
I think everyone keeps sleeping on him. I don't understand like the hate,
including his quarterbacks.
What's that?
Including his quarterbacks.
Right. I don't get it, but we will see. Let's move down a couple spots. You already talked about saying you hate this team. DJ Moore at 24. Higher or lower?
Lower.
Oh, that easy.
Yep.
I don't know.
Him and Fields do not mix.
How do they not mix?
Fields, you look at his best was with pure separators. DJ Moore is not a separator. He's down the field.
Okay.
Contested catch.
I see. Here's the thing. I think DJ Moore is a separator because he doesn't have the body style for a true, like, throw it up, contested catch, body guy. It's just his quarterback play has been so bad that he's constantly having to make contested catches. I think if he gets better quarterback play, we're going to see a better season out of DJ Moore than we have so far. So
it's the Terry McLaurin conundrum.
Sure.
It was 2 years ago. No. Yeah, 2 years ago. He had the most contested catch targets in the league. And like, that's not his play style. So I definitely can understand that.
I think
I know really bad quarterback play. Yep.
All right, let's get one last wide receiver one in here. Wide receiver 31. I already know what Heavy T is going to say, even though he said way lower on DJ Moore. He's such a Bears hater. Drake London at 31. Higher or lower?
Give me the thumbs. Both. Where's the camera again? Both thumbs up higher.
Yeah,
I love that number.
People would say that this year. I think people are projecting things to be a little bit better. But we'll see. I don't know that there's room for Bijan to get all of his in the passing game as well, and Kyle Pitts to improve, and Drake London to improve. So I think one of those three things is going to disappoint this year. Either Bijan doesn't get the reception workload than we thought he would get. Drake is going to not get the workload, or Pitts. Like one of three of those guys is going to disappoint. I just don't know what it'll be. Heavy T say higher, but only slightly.
Yeah, like I mean that number to me is so easy because like wasn't Curtis Samuel like wide receiver 33 or something?
Yeah,
like 34.
Yeah, he's wide receiver.
So
33.
like You look at what Curtis Samuel did. I think that Drake London can match that, but it might not be as big of a jump as a lot of people would like it to be.
Sure. All right, let's get the last position in here. Tight end, higher, lower,
Thanks,
huh?
Keith says, "Keep up with the good work, fellas. Love the content."
Oh, thank you, sir. My dude, Keith. All right, I'm gonna allow a push on this one.
Okay.
Travis Kelce, higher, lower, or push at tight end 1?
How do you say higher than tight end 1?
Because it's the game, higher or lower. I gotta say it.
Okay, Garrett, higher. Let's just say
way wrong.
Still one of the funniest shorts that I have ever uploaded to social media was you 2 years ago talking about how Kelce is a high for Dynasty Football. I still get comment notifications of being like, ha ha ha.
Idiot. He's playing forever.
He's tight end 1 until he's not.
Yeah. So you're projecting tight end 1 again this year? No George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson?
Nope.
All right. Let's go with a more realistic one then. Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews was tight end 4 last year. Higher or lower on Mark Andrews?
Higher. I agree with Heavy T. I'm saying higher.
So you're buying into the new system that they're going to be running in this offense, then, I'm guessing, right?
Kinda. I'm also just buying into that the offense stunk last year, and Mark Andrews is better than tight end 4. So if it gets a little bit more efficient, and it was just, Lamar was injured. If Lamar is healthy for all the games, I'm really confident in that.
All right, let's go to tight end 10, Dalton Schultz. Higher or lower than tight end 10? He was with Dallas last year. He is now a Houston Texan.
Now, I watched Ola Stroud. Side note, how did you feel that Stroud did today?
I did get to watch a little bit of it. The pick was disappointing. He obviously did not see the safety at all. Yep. But it's his first game. It's a Bill Belichick defense. Mills is a great safety. I'm not going to read too much into that.
No. I would say, why do I keep saying I would say? I am saying higher, but
not going to go higher. So you think Stroud's checking it down a lot? They're utilizing him a lot in this offense.
Yeah. He's their George Kittle. He's not as athletic. And I hate those, the tight end 1 in this team is the tight end 1. The Trey Burton effect. That's what I call it. But he has shown in the past that if he is asked to be the volume option on an offense, he can do very well on that. So
awesome. All right. Yeah, I had a tough one. I had a tough time with that one. Last but not least, right behind him at tight end 11, David Njoku. You going higher or lower for David Njoku?
Here's the tough thing about David Njoku is I love drafting him because he is the one tight end in that range that could be the tight end 3.
Sure.
On any given year. But if I had to bet on it, I would probably say lower. Just with all the receiving weapons around him, and just historically, he's always been around that range.
He did deal with some injuries last year, missed 3 games due to injury. So if he stays healthy, that could be a big factor in it too. But the big thing for him is consistency. Yep. You look at his numbers, and this is PPR: 1.7 points, 6.2 points, 23.9, 9.7, 14.8, 8.8, 14.1, and then missed some games: 3.7, 13.9, 18.7, 5.8, 3.4, 3.1, 14.2. It's just,
he's the DeAndre Swift of tight ends.
Yeah, it was like Deshaun Jackson back in the day.
Yep,
he's gonna have some big games, but man, it's tough when you're starting a guy that's going to put up those weeks that you just are hemorrhaging points.
Yep.
All right. Well, Peter, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for talking the dispersal draft. Thank you for playing higher and lower with us. Remind the folks where they can find you and anything else you want to tell them.
Well, let's see. Funny story really fast. So when we went to Nantucket, both my wife and I are notoriously, I don't know if thrifty is the right word.
Okay.
But we're pretty thrifty.
Okay. First of all, I thought you were going to say both my wives for a second. I was like,
both my wives.
Wait,
yep.
What?
Yep. Yeah, heavy tea. I'm married. 5 years actually this year. So for example, though, so I grew up a super poor photographer. When we were dating one time, this was actually the day that I proposed to her.
Okay.
I had to call up my bank to make sure I have enough money to buy her a kombucha, which was $3. And she's like this genius. She was going through like PA school. She was about to go through PA school. And I was like, what's happening? But so we went to Nantucket and we were both notoriously thrifty. And
is this your way of saying cheap?
Yeah, cheap. We love a good deal. Okay.
Okay. All right.
We find out there that Nantucket, according to a study, is literally the most expensive vacation destination in the world. It cost $78 for 2 sandwiches and a lemonade.
Dang. What was on those sandwiches?
I mean, it was good. It wasn't that good. Wow. So like showing up and like we thought we knew what we were gonna get into, but it was we had it was partially like, okay, we're just gonna have to spend a lot of money, and partially going to the local Stop and Shop grocery store and doing the best we can.
Wow. Yeah, that throws off the food budget for the month.
But there were like families of 5, families 5 and 6. They're all ordering sandwiches, and I'm like, okay, some GP.
I mean, if you got the money on vacation there, it is what it is, I guess.
Yep, it is what it is. Beautiful, beautiful place.
Very cool. I would love to see it sometime, but. All right, Peter. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will obviously have you back on again. We roughly have you on, I feel like, close to once a month, right?
Yep.
Yeah, something like that. And it feels right. It feels
a quarter Dennis.
A quarter.
That's what I aspired to.
All right, buddy. We'll see you later.
See you guys. Bye.
All right. We will take a quick break. When we get back, make sure to get all of those trade questions in. Even maybe some redraft questions in. I'll be talking a little bit about guys like Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, some of these holdout, these running backs. We're going to do all that when we get back here on the Better Sports Network.
Breece Hall right now, and I've talked to plenty of high-stakes players, I'm sure you have too, Kev. Had Hall not torn his ACL last year, he might have been the 101 in drafts this year. That's how good he was looking last year, and obviously with the addition of Aaron Rodgers. At the 305, running back 11 behind Derrick Henry and Ramondre Stevenson, right ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs and Najee Harris. Your thoughts on him as a mid-third round pick? How have you been attacking him? Have you been getting him at that spot so far this year?
Yeah, if I start out with 2 wide receivers, Breece Hall is right at the top of the queue coming into the third. If I knew he'd be healthy for week 1, I was still a little.
Well, he'd be going higher than the mid-third.
Right, he may go 101 or RB1 at least.
Yeah.
But I don't think we know that even if he's healthy in spring and the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I still like if I'm running a team, if I'm the coach, I'm bringing him back slow. Like he's on a pitch count. Like. I want him for the end of the season because I got Aaron Rodgers for the playoffs, right? Like, even if he's fully healthy, I would work him in slow. But that is actually what you want. Like, he's still going to get the high value touches. So, yeah, if we know he's healthy, he's a first rounder. So, like, if he's sitting there in the third, especially when I get 2 wide receivers to start, I'll take Hall all day.
Yeah, it almost makes me think that the uncertainty with Breece Hall has made him unfairly fall too far, right? Like, right. Because we're talking about the team here in June. They're still hoping that he's ready for week 1. This is not, oh, we'll see what happens. Oh, we're taking it day by day. Oh, we're liking how he's coming along. No, they still think by week 1. And the fact that we have that timeline, I think, maybe bumps him up, especially as the drafting season gets deeper and deeper here in July and August. Maybe we start seeing him go up the boards as well.
Welcome back in, Dynasty Nerds on the Better Sports Network. We have our first taste of some preseason football happening right now as I speak, and it's glorious. It is so good to have football back. I can't wait for it to be real, for it to be meaningful, but we still can glean some things from these games. We have to keep in mind all of the formations, all of the things are very vanilla. Teams are trying things out, testing things, so you can't hold too much with it, but something to keep in mind. All right. Feel free to put in any trade questions, any draft questions, anything like that you have in here, and I will do my best to get to it. But Ali Boskod, and he asked about how I'm feeling about Jonathan Taylor. And I wanted to get into not just Taylor, but I also wanted to get to Josh Jacobs, J.K. Dobbins, and even some of these other running backs that are holding out right now. Now, here's where I want to start with. Let's start with JT because he's probably the most significant of all of these. First of all, this situation is ugly. It's not a good situation. Irsay is one of those guys. Like, you have some people that'll say stuff and you're like, okay, Irsay will do it. Like, Irsay's not playing around. He's awesome, but he's a little crazy too. So the situation is not good. The fact that they brought Kareem Hunt in, now they couldn't figure out a deal, all that kind of stuff. All that to be said, Jonathan Taylor's going to be back. I think a lot of running backs learned from the whole Le'Veon Bell thing. Then we had Melvin Gordon kind of try to do it, and then it was like, just kidding, I'm coming back. And I think that's what we're going to see from most of these running backs. So when you're looking at specifically JT and Dobbins, I think both of these guys get it figured out one way or another. I think Dobbins, they figure out some sort of deal, bring him back. I think Jonathan Taylor's done. I do. I think he's not going to be on this team in 2024. He's going to be on a different team. But that doesn't mean he can't have a monster season this year, because he's going to want to prove it more now than ever, because he's got to literally play for his worth. If he has another injury-riddled season, if he has a mediocre season, he's not getting a big deal. So I think they do bring him back. I think he ends up coming back, and I think he has an amazing season. So right now he is plummeting, and I mean plummeting down draft boards. Last time I saw an underdog, I think he's down to like running back 9, running back 10 now. So he is absolutely free falling, and I'm scooping up the value. I still think that he has a chance to be a legitimate top 10 back and still be in that range of the top 5 guys. So I'm still in on Jonathan Taylor. Similar with J.K. Dobbins. I'm in on J.K. Dobbins. I think he's a very, very talented running back. We saw him putting up 5+ yards a carry after coming back from the ACL injury. He looked really good, even though he didn't look 100%. So if we can get him back, if we can get him fully healthy, if we can get him to 100%, I think he's going to have a monster year in this Todd Monken offense. So I'm in on him. The Josh Jacobs one is a little weird, and I get it. For some reason, that one does scare me still a little bit. I think he will ultimately end up being back as well. But I think we might see a little delay into the season. I think he's going to hold out as long as he can, realistically. So we might see a 3-4 game absence before we actually get him back, which would give us a chance to see Zamir White, who I personally am a really big fan of. They've been saying good things about him. The head coach has as well. So I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see him play. Chris said Dak got traded for Trevor Lawrence. Oh, well, look at that. You fibber, you. Edward says, am I the only one who is high on Khalil Herbert with his current ADP? He is finding a spot on all my teams so far, just too cheap. I'm torn on Khalil Herbert, and I've talked about Herbert a little bit on the show as well. I'm torn on him because do I think talent-wise he should be worth it as where he's at ADP-wise? Absolutely. And I know Dennis Bennett is actually a really big fan of his. My concern is what happens midway through the year. Because typically, if you're in love with a guy as your starting running back, you're not bringing in lots of competition. And they brought in Donta Foreman, and then they drafted Roschon Johnson. I think long-term, they want Roschon to be the guy. And even though I think the Bears will be better this year, I still don't think they're going to be a great team. So we could see midway through the year where they're just like, let's see what Roschon has. Like, let's get him more work. Let's see if he could be our running back of the future. So that's the biggest worry for me. So I'm not out on Khalil Herbert. I'm not in on Khalil Herbert. I'm kind of like where he's going, I'm good with because I'm concerned. But I think talent-wise, you're right. I think talent-wise, he deserves to be going higher. I just don't know fully what Chicago feels about him, and that's my biggest concern overall there. Losing Matt Collins is going to hurt the Raiders' running game. Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that, but that dude's built like a freaking tight end. He's an absolute monster. So then all of that being said, we have many running backs that are still out there. And that's the thing that's puzzling to me because I would have thought by this point, the time where we're starting to get actual preseason games, that we would have started seeing some of these guys sign with teams. Now, I know Dalvin Cook has been close a couple times. I know Kareem Hunt has been close a couple of times. So I know that teams are interested to an extent, but it seems like all of these guys want more than NFL teams are willing to give at this point. And that's going to be tricky. And honestly, I haven't heard really much of anything around Zeke. I haven't heard much of anything around Leonard Fournette. A couple visits a while ago, but we haven't seen much at all. And I'm starting to wonder if one or two of these guys don't end up signing somewhere before the season starts. And they might just be at the point where they're going to wait until they see if there's a significant injury to a team that has a big time running back and just wait till then, which makes it really difficult for us to draft. Because one, we don't know which one of these guys is going to be going where. And two, we don't know what type of situation they're going to be drafted into. Are they going to be drafted into a situation where, you know, they're getting the bulk of the carries? I don't think at this point that would happen anywhere, but it's in the realm of possibility, especially with a guy as talented as Dalvin Cook. Do they get drafted somewhere where they're the clear backup? Or are they drafted a committee, which I think most of these guys, that's the most likely scenario, is they're being drafted and they're part of a committee. So it's going to be really tough, but I am still willing, for how cheap a lot of these guys are right now, I'm willing to take that risk and just throw out offers. Ones I'm comfortable with, but throw out offers for these guys because towards the end of the season, playoff teams are going to want a solid running back. And they're going to be willing to give, you know, a small menial contract to do it. So you might be able to get at some point Zeke for a third. You might be able to get Kareem Hunt for a third. Like, just throw out some offers. Throw out some offers. Throw out some offers. That's what I would do at this point. So we're going to take one more quick break. But before we do though, Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription. We talk about it almost every single week. Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription. And don't forget, you get the Fantasy Football Draft Guide and cheat sheet. That's perfect for this time of year where all those big drafts are starting up right now. Redraft. You can start a 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription and get the Fantasy Football Draft Guide and cheat sheet absolutely free. Go to fantasyalarm.com/draft. That's fantasyalarm.com/draft. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to be taking some more of your questions, and then Dennis Bennett, the man himself, will be joining us right around 10:15, and we'll be back.
What can we expect from you out there on the track tonight?
Listen, I have a wife, 2 kids. I have, full-time jobs. I'm never nervous. I don't even know what that word means. Can you explain what nervous means? No. I'm ready to have fun. I've never done anything like this before. I got asked to be a part of this. This is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to just look around and see what goes on here. So I'm just excited to get out on the horse. And you want trash talk? Is that what you're asking me for? No trash talk. I hope everyone does well.
All right. Everyone's going to do well, but it has to be a winner. So give me your trifecta. Who's going to come in first, second, and third? Your heat.
I will go Maria 1, me 2, Willie 3, Moose goes 4th.
Well, it's very simple. I won this event last year. I won my heat, and so the defending champ has to be the favorite. Now, that makes me a little nervous just because I feel like it's hard to repeat. There's a little pressure when you're the favorite. But that being said, I'm still optimistic.
So your heat, it's you,
yes.
Moose and Keith from Better Sports Network, and Willie Colon.
I think Keith might be my stiffest competition. And I asked for this because I actually recruited Keith, if you didn't know. So Keith, if you win, you're welcome.
Malusis is very good. I mean, he knows what he's doing. But I'm going to go with Maria.
Keith is waving to the crowd. He must pay attention because they're off. It's Mark Malusis going for the lead. Maria Marino on the outside, and now Keith Irizarry on the outside with speed, and they're 3 wide into the first turn. Woo! Mark Malusis is locked in for his life. 138 and 2. They're into the stretch. Sportscasters Derby 2. And still in front, Keith Irizarry. And now Mark Malusis is trying to squeeze on through.
Come on! Come on! Let's go! Come on, kick it! Yeah!
Keith Irizarry. Keith, you did it all the way, wire to wire. Over Mark Malusis.
Awesome! That was so cool!
The champ is here! Keith, what was it like being out there? Adrenaline rush, you were doing the Instagram Live, so there was no panic. You looked cool, calm, collected the whole time, and you won it.
I felt really comfortable. I did. Like, I know you were joking with me before. Are you nervous? Are you whatever? What are you? David, the driver, was awesome. He's like, we're going to win this. I said, all right, let's win this. And he said, let's go. Yeah, I just felt really comfortable. I did. It was fun. We're in the lead. I got Maria Marino on the right side of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to beat us, right? And then out of nowhere, you see Moose coming up this way, and we feel him breathing down our neck. And I'm like,
Moose
no!
on the loose. Watch out.
Moose was definitely on the loose, and we just got Moose by a neck, a nose, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but again, all of this for a great cause, and it was absolutely awesome to do this. It was cool.
All right, Keith, congratulations, and no matter what, you could always hold this over Moose's head.
Yeah!
Right, we are back again. Better Sports Network, Dynasty Nerds. We are live here, just a little past 10 o'clock. I'm your host, Garret Price. And I want to tell you guys real quickly about the FSGA College Fantasy Football Draft. That's right, we're kicking off college fantasy football season with a live fantasy draft. The FSGA College Fantasy Football Draft, in fact, featuring the top college football analysts drafting the best players for the 2023 season. It is hosted by my good friends over at Campus to Canton, and those guys truly, they really know their stuff. Worked with several of them at Dynasty Nerds. Great guys over there. Follow pick by pick coverage, strategies, interviews with the YouTube channel, or search FSGA College Fantasy Draft today. All right. So lots of good things going on. Real quick recap on the Texans game. I didn't get to catch all of it, obviously, because live on the air, but the big story of the day was Tank Dell. I mean, Tank Dell was out there, looked really good, really, really explosive. CJ Stroud struggled a little bit, only got 2 drives at the very beginning, so tough to really, read too much into that. We did get to see some other, up-and-comers, Xavier Hutchinson, Nico Collins, John Mechie, all got a catch as well. So exciting to see those guys out there. They won 20-9. And as my boy Michael Anthony said, it's almost time for Jackson Smith and Jigba versus Jordan Addison. So I'm very excited to see that play out, see those 2 young up-and-coming wide receivers as well. So I want to keep doing this a little bit because I was talking the league FFB. Let's go, Garrett. Football is almost here. That's right. All right. Butte was pretty much a non-factor. Yeah, I saw him have like one. I missed the second half, but I only saw one play and he got like clapped up on it. But I want to keep doing this with you guys. If you guys don't have any trade questions, if you do, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will get to them now before Dennis joins us in less than 10 minutes here. But I had a couple more names that I wanted to get to with Peter that I didn't have time to get to. So I want to ask you guys, what are your thoughts? And I know Tyler is ready to go because he answered on his own each and every time, like split second after I asked it. He already knew higher or lower. He did good with that. So let's go this year. He's ready. He said, LOL, he's ready to go. All right. So let's go back to the quarterback position. I only had one other one that I potentially wanted to talk about, and that was Mr. Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, great season last year, especially running the football, which is what really boosted him up. He was quarterback 9, higher or lower for quarterback 9 on Daniel Jones this year. Brian Dable has done a really good job with that offense. We know we're getting Saquon Barkley back. He's saying push. Come on, Tyler. You got to get higher or lower. I didn't give you that option. He's saying push. Josh is saying lower. He said fine, lower, but like 10. I'm actually going to go lower as well. I wanted to go higher. I really wanted to. But when I think I'm putting Lamar Jackson back in there, I'm putting Tua back in there. I'm putting Aaron Rodgers back in there. Even Justin Herbert was behind him last year. So I think when you put all those guys in there, now we're going to start to see Daniel Jones at like 12, 13 is probably more likely. Because even like it wouldn't surprise me if Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott or Deshaun Watson, like there are lots of guys that could really push for him this year. There were a lot of off years, injuries, and granted, injuries happen every year. But I'm more in like the 12, 13 range this year for Mr. Daniel Jones. All right, let's go back to the running back position, and let's go with Aaron Jones. So we did Daniel Jones. Aaron Jones at running back 11, higher or lower this coming year? Lower for my boy Heavy T. I have a really hard time with this one. I'm going to say lower, though. I don't believe in the offense as a whole. I think they're going to be behind throwing quite a bit, which could benefit Aaron Jones, but I just don't know that I believe in it. So Stephen F. said, not a trade question, but wanted to get your advice on setting up a dynasty league with contracts, trying to figure out the best way to do it so players aren't held for an eternity on a team. So I've been in a few different contract leagues. There's a few different ways that you can do it. One of the ones that I have is basically you don't worry as much about the total money, but it's more focused on the number of total years that you can give to players on your team. So you can't give anybody a contract bigger than 4 years. It's the most that you can give to them. And when you give them the contract, once the contract is up, then you can apply to have like a transition tag. So people can use like their free agent budget to kind of like try to match your amount, or you can use your franchise tag, which means you would get them for one additional year. But if at some point it kind of gets to the point where you're just like, I just can't, there's no viable way to hold them anymore, puts them back in. You can institute like salary caps as well. The tricky part with that is free agent bidding gets a little weird. But you definitely can do it. I know like Reality Sports Online, and there's another one, but there are ones that are like set up specifically for that. So it's something to look into. But Dynasty Owner, that's the other one. Dynasty Owner, they have it set up with like real contracts and what their real contracts actually are. So you can do that as well on there. So if you're wanting to do that, I would check them out or check out RSO, and they'll set it up for you so you don't have to manually do a lot of that stuff, and it would make it a lot easier. All right, one other running back that I wanted to touch on that I didn't get a chance to. Let's talk about Mr. Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon was 20th overall last year. Higher or lower on Jerick McKinnon? And I'm guessing a lot of people are going to say lower. I'm actually going to say higher on Jerick McKinnon. I think that they are going to be throwing the football a lot. I like Pacheco, but I don't know. Heavy T said lower because I have Pacheco as a keeper. So there you go. I don't know about Pacheco. I like Pacheco, and I think that he could have a ton of work this year. And Heavy T and I were talking about he's keeping him like in the 9th. So I get that. The risk is more than worth it in the 9th round. But I think McKinnon's going to catch a lot of passes. So I'm going to say higher. Not much, like 19, 18. But I think he might be another legitimate RB2 again this year. All right, Keith says, hey, Garrett, you're a Browns fan. Is Jerome Ford going to be used in the same way as Kareem Hunt, or is he just a high-end handcuff? Definitely more the latter than the former. I think he's just a high-end handcuff, and he's been dealing with some injury problems, so he hasn't even been getting a lot of work in camp so far. So I definitely think it's going to be the Nick Chubb show, and he's just going to be, more of a guy that you have if you're Nick Chubb. You have him on your roster, but other than that, you're not feeling overly confident. All right, let's get one or two more in here before we get Dennis Bennett. Let's go to wide receiver 16, DK Metcalf. We saw Geno Smith perform a little better than we expected originally, but now we have JSN here. So is that going to affect him much, or maybe more Tyler Lockett? So DK Metcalf, higher or lower than wide receiver 16? I am leaning lower as of right now. I do think JSN is going to cut in slight bit, and I think we see a little bit of regression for Geno. I mean, Geno was quarterback 5 last year. So I think we're going to see a little bit of regression. But we got two guys saying higher. Peter and Josh are saying higher. Heavy T says lower. So I'm going to go with lower. I think he's going to be a little bit lower this year, just because of the possible Geno regression and the addition of JSN. Then let's go to Deontay Johnson. I know that there's a lot of truthers out there for George Pickens. Last year, Deontay Johnson was wide receiver 28, and I am absolutely going higher. Absolutely going higher. I believe in Deontay Johnson this year so much, mostly because he is due for tons of positive regression. He literally had 0 touchdowns last year. He was wide receiver 28 with 0 touchdowns. Heavy T saying lower. Josh is saying lower. Man, I am absolutely going higher. The odds of him being able to, one, it's a better offense than last year. It's improved offensive line. It's the second year with Kenny Pickett, so we expect him to take a step forward. Najee's healthy. Like, I'm absolutely doing it. So I am way higher. Like I'm talking 10 spots higher. Like I think he could easily crack into the mid wide receiver 2 range. So I am all about it. Josh says he's into the Pickens hype though. I have a hard time seeing him separate. I don't know. We'll see. Keith said he traded Pickens for DJ Moore. I like that. I would absolutely want DJ Moore there. All kinds of, can you take me higher? Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Let's get Dennis Bennett in here on the Better Sports Network. Dennis Bennett, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I am doing good. Rocking the Guns N' Roses shirt. Took my 12-year-old to his first concert Tuesday night.
Did you really?
Motley Crue and Def Leppard, Alice Cooper at Ohio Stadium.
How cool was it?
It was very cool. I love Motley Crue. It's the 4th time. I think he might have enjoyed it too. Actually, tonight, my 18-year-old took the 12-year-old up to Cleveland, and they're at the Gojira and Mastodon show. So,
look at this guy's getting all kinds
rock
of
and roll before the kids head back to school. It's crazy to think that a week from tomorrow, I'm moving my kid into the dorms at OSU.
That's wild, man. Are you excited about that? Or are you sad, or a little bit of both?
I mean, it's like 20 minutes away. I mean,
yeah.
It's like my wife's like, oh, we got to figure out what to pack. I'm like, it's 20 minutes away. He's going to take a backpack. He's already planning to be home twice a week for rehearsal for his band. They rehearse next door at the neighbors, and that doesn't, he's going to then be home on Sundays because he works at the music store on Sunday. So he'll come by the house and say hi, probably on Saturday too. We'll see. It'll be just like now, except we'll have to get over worrying about whether or not he's coming home.
There you go. There you go. Well, Dennis, we've got an awesome night because one, I mean, football's back. So that's exciting in and of itself. But two, we're going to be heading to the Fantasy Football Expo. So I wanted to touch on the Fantasy Football Expo before we get into preseason week 1, talking about the things that we're looking for, some of our expectations, things like that. Dennis, for those that are not familiar with the Fantasy Football Expo, give everybody a rundown of just what is it and what is it like?
So it's wild because the expo is like the actual expo is like 6 hours on Sunday. But like the poker tournament started tonight. Like there's people that have been arriving in Canton all day today. Drew Davenport, the host of the Auction Brief podcast, he's got a big poker tournament going on. I think Rich made it to the final table last year in the poker tournament. So there's stuff going on. Tomorrow, it'll be registration, people coming in. We got a shuttle bus that's going to be running from the hotels down to Centennial Plaza for the event on Centennial Plaza. Like last year, that was bonkers. There was cornhole tournament going on, a dude playing the violin, the biggest TV I've ever seen, probably a whole bunch of little TVs all put together, showing the Browns game. And literally probably somewhere between 500 and 800 people just down there having a good time, talking fantasy football, getting to know each other. I mean, we saw guys like Matt Deutsch, the guy who founded this network.
That's right.
Andy Behrens, Brad Evans, Mike Clay, Michael Fabiano, Bob Harris, you, Rich, Matt, Jared. It was like Kendall Valenzuela, Howard Bender, so many of the names, because they come in Saturday. So they arrive because the initial thing that prompted this was the Kings Classic, which started a couple of years before the initial Fantasy Football Expo. And that's where like 14 of the biggest names in the business get together and they do a snake draft, take a break, splash some water on their face, and then they do an auction draft. And they do it at the Hall of Fame. And you can swing by and watch them and wave to them, say hi. There'll be stuff getting set up at the Hall of Fame. So that goes on. There's draft night out, hosts all these that you can sign up. I don't know if they have any spots left, but last year I think they had something like 80 or 90 drafts going on at draft night out. All these leagues going on, and you mean Scott Fish is there. You just see so many people that you interact with on Twitter. You watch their shows. You see them on ESPN and NBC Sports and CBS and Yahoo, and they're all just, great people there to have fun, share fantasy football, have a good time, and then there's always the flag football tournament. I don't know about you, I'm out. My days are over.
I thought about it. The problem is I keep not being able to get there like soon enough to play in it. So, but I've thought about it. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't have to prove anything anymore.
So one of the things you'll see a lot. There's two narratives on Twitter. One is the fantasy football gatekeepers, and the other is kumbaya. Everything is beautiful. And when you get to the Fantasy Football Expo, it's so much more everything is beautiful than you could ever expect. People have spats on Twitter, and sometimes we let it carry over into our regular lives when we interact with people. But for the most part, we're just a bunch of grown-ups and young adults and old men like me that love playing fantasy football, want to have a good time, meet people that also love to play fantasy football. It doesn't matter if it's redraft or dynasty or best ball or IDP or standard or all flex, whatever. You find people there that play in all kinds of stuff. The expo is just this massive thing of all these booths, all these people, different shows, different people hawking their wares, people doing panels. There's all kinds of discussions going on. The Women of Fantasy Football was one of the most had some of the largest attendance for any panel last year. And you know what? Rich he's commissioning the Kings Classic Dynasty League draft this year. So it's just an unbelievable time. And then, like any conference you go to, there's always the after hours.
For sure,
you gotta be careful. You can't get too loose. You got to comport yourself in a professional manner, even when you're having unprofessional time. You don't want to, you don't want to make a scene.
No names, but there have been some nerds in the past that have struggled with that. So we are very familiar with how that works. All right. So I'm getting there Saturday. Dennis, what time are you getting there?
I'll be there tomorrow. I haven't decided when I'm leaving. My wife will leave for work about 8:30, 9 o'clock. I'll get around. I'll probably leave 10 or 11. Sure. What time we check into the nerd's house? Probably 3 o'clock?
Something like that, yeah.
I usually go. So the DoubleTree is the hub. So I usually go and hang out at the DoubleTree until I can get in. At 8:30 tomorrow, I got to be back at the nerd's house because I've got recording the Fantasy Football Expo. Our Fantasy Football Roundtable. We'll be broadcasting at. It's our last division breakdown show. I just need to get it done. We're at the last. We got to get it done. So I'll hop away from the plaza, go back, do that, then go back to the plaza. I may look old, but I can hang.
That's right.
Only because I don't drink. If I drank, it would be a total fiasco. But
Yeah, well, if you are in and around the Canton, Ohio area, I would say within 3 or 4 hours, I would highly recommend coming down to the expo. The event the night before, you mentioned the Centennial Plaza. Last year, we were at the Pro Football Hall of Fame field, and we did it at the field. This year, I think it's actually inside the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the actual expo is in the Hall of Fame. The Friday night event is at the Plaza, Centennial Plaza.
Okay.
And then everything else Saturday and Sunday is at the Hall of Fame. We'll have a shuttle bus running between the hotels. You can't drink on the bus. Don't get riled up. Be nice to your driver. Tip him. He's driving, so you don't have to.
But yeah, so come on down, say hi, hang out. Every year I meet tons of people that listen to the shows and that kind of stuff. And it's so fun to get to talk with them and, hear their thoughts on things. And, oh, I thought you guys were going to be more like this, or I thought you were going to look more like this, or I thought you were, it's always really, I thought you were going to be shorter. I thought you were going to be taller.
There's a lot of Roadhouse there. Oh, I thought you'd be bigger.
Absolutely.
Everybody seems actually what's happened is everybody's like, man, everybody's so tall. There's so many tall people in the industry.
There are. All right, Dennis, let's get to some of the preseason discussion here. And Dennis, what's your overall, before we get into more of specific things, specific players, what's your overall thought on how we evaluate the preseason for fantasy football purposes? Is it something that you give a lot of credence, a little bit of credence, only with certain players or situations? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, there's clearly a stars and scrubs approach to preseason. Like, there are just some people who are going to play, if at all, maybe 1 or 2 series the entire preseason.
Right.
But we know what we're getting. We know, Sean McVay said Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp aren't going to play in the preseason. Aaron Donald isn't going to play in preseason. A lot of these players, they're just not going to play, or they're going to play very little. There's no question about the role they have in their team, and the role that they'll play for fantasy football. So those are the stars. The scrubs are the guys that, maybe they're breakouts. We did a series on Dynasty Nerds, deep stashes, and those are those guys. They're trying to make a team. They're trying to catch on. They're trying to be the next Arian Foster, or the next Tom Brady, some guy that comes out of nowhere, a 6th, 7th round pick, a free agent, and just make a play and catch an eye and they want to become relevant for their career, and we want them to become relevant for fantasy. So there's those guys. Then there's the guys in the middle. You got the stars and the scrubs, but there's, when the stars are out, we want to know, like, all right, who's the number 2 guy up in Minnesota? We feel like Madison's going to be the guy, but I think most of us also feel like he's not going to get the work Dalvin Cook got.
Right.
He's going to be the guy, but he's going to share a little more. But is he sharing it with Chandler? Is he sharing it with McBride? Is he sharing it with both of them? So we're looking for those to see like, how's O'Connell going to use those guys? I got the TV on. It's great. I got my big TV right up here above the screen and the camera. So it's, I'm so happy football is back. Well, the Vikings came out and right out of the gate throwing the ball to Jordan Addison.
Yep.
There's been a lot of, he's kind of been anointed to take over, but KJ Osborne had a real good year last year as the wide receiver 3 in Minnesota. And so I don't think he's just going to give it away. But I also think Addison is the better player. And so what I'm watching for is confirmation of that. I saw this meme on Twitter today, and it was like, do preseason games matter? And it's like arrow going, does it confirm my prior biases? Yes. Does it go against my biases? Then no. And that's kind of, it is, but we have to acknowledge we have those biases.
Sure.
So we got guys we like. We were talking about, you and Peter were talking about Khalil Herbert, and your concerns about him being the previous regime's player, not necessarily the guy, but a player. And me being like, I think this could be the guy this year because he has the explosiveness that Deontay Foreman doesn't have. And Roschon Johnson is a rookie. And I think Roschon will be able to carve out a role as the passing. I could see Roschon and Herbert coexisting as the 1-2 punch.
Maybe.
I don't know that Foreman, I think Foreman is going to be a guy that is in that phase where he's going to be on teams for a little while, but he may not necessarily be consistently fantasy relevant. He's not at the Lat Murray stage of his career yet, but he's getting there.
He's not far off.
Yeah, he's getting there. And we've seen Herbert pop. Herbert's got good size, 5'9", 211 pounds. So he's got a good BMI, and he's explosive. We saw him make plays. At his size, you'd love him to be, more accomplished in the passing game than he is. but he didn't. That just wasn't part of what he was expected to do. So I like Herbert's opportunity this year, and I like that, his second year in the system, he's going to be able to. I think he's going to be able to take a hold of it. Do I think he'll be the guy there in 3 years? No, I don't. But I think this year I like him.
See, Dennis, this is how you know that you are a true professional. You managed to go from, let's talk about general thoughts on preseason, and you figured out how to seamlessly talk about your boy. That's what a true professional can do. You make them answer the questions that you want. It's what I like to see.
So generally in preseason, I felt like I did kind of answer it. We're talking
you did. You just snuck it in.
Big themes. Like, you have to listen. There's so, like, I posted in the chat earlier, Pete Carroll's a liar.
Yeah.
I'm there. I have genuine concerns about Kenneth Walker's shoulder.
Yeah.
But I also saw this thing today where it had a picture of Zach Charbonnet and next to a picture of Kenneth Walker, and Charbonnet is all, and Kenneth Walker's all. And I'm like, well, if I'm going into a fight, I want the guy that's mugging there. I don't want that little happy-go-lucky dude. So it feels like, Walker just has an explosive element to his game that if he can get away from trying to bounce everything outside, I don't think Charbonnet takes the job. But I think Charbonnet will complement him because he is bigger, and he does. I think he is more functional in the passing game. He's a better receiver.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Hal asks, what do you think about McBride? So speaking specifically about him, obviously Ty Chandler did awesome on the first drive, 5 carries for 27 yards, threw in 2 receptions there for 12 yards. So he was the offense on that first drive there. And Ty Chandler out of UNC was a guy I really liked, but McBride, I loved his tape. Just a physical, I'm going to run through your face. I don't care if you get out of the way or not. I'm going A to B. And I loved watching him play. I thought he was a really talented running back. Any thoughts on McBride?
I want to see if he's, dollar store Adrian Peterson, or if he can catch the ball.
Sure.
He's got fantastic balance, good burst. When it comes to running the ball, he's a dude. And I just don't know that he has the talent to be a 3-down back, or get the lion's share of the fantasy relevant plays if he can't do things in the passing game, because I don't think he's as talented as Adrian Peterson. And, Peterson was good enough that, if he got a couple dump offs a game, you were satisfied with him in the passing game. I don't know that McBride is going to be a guy that runs the ball 25 times a game. But when he does run the ball now, what we've seen coming out of college, good acceleration, good burst, great balance. I think I think right now it looks like it's going to be Chandler as the number 2. But I don't think I feel like McBride will still get an opportunity.
Absolutely.
I have to go back and look at Madison's contract. I know they signed him to, I think, a 3-year extension. But it wouldn't surprise me if they're trying to get out of it after this year with Chandler and McBride.
Absolutely. Keith asks if we're concerned about Smith getting in there at the goal line instead of McBride. I'm not overly concerned about anything that happens in these preseason games. You never know what player they're trying to put where. They're just testing everything out at this point. And I'm guessing they're going to want to give McBride like whole series later in the game. So that's my guess in this.
Yeah, I think with Abram Smith, they want to make sure that he's functional as a running back because he's a special teamer.
For sure.
He's going to make his money playing special teams in the NFL. He was a linebacker, then a running back at Baylor. And, as much as I would like to see him, get an opportunity, I just don't know that it's in the cards for him to be a fantasy guy. He'll be a guy that's always on a team for the next 7-8 years, but it'll be because of his special teams play.
So Jordan Heckler said he wanted some help real quick, and I'm guessing this is redraft, and he's thinking about drafting Devontae Adams in the first round, second round Josh Jacobs, third whoever's the best on the board. then maybe Justin Fields in the 4th. And so with this, I have no problem in a vacuum with any of those guys in the range that you're talking about. But my only hesitation would be, don't lock in so much on a player right now that you might miss a better player that becomes available. And you say like, well, I'm for sure taking this player, or, you know, a receiver here, maybe a running back falls that you didn't think would fall in the first round. And you don't have to take Devontae Adams there. Instead, you can get Derrick Henry, or, you know, whoever. You can get a player that you feel a little bit better about. Maybe it's not the exact guy you want. So in a vacuum, sure, like I'm fine with those players, although that might be a slight reach. What's the ADP on Devontae? Yeah, that might be a slight reach on Devontae. His is looking right around the 15th pick right now, wide receiver 8. So that might be a slight reach on him. But I have no problem with Josh Jacobs in the 2nd round. I think he's absolutely a guy that I want to get. So, and if you don't like Henry, that's fine. Nick Chubb or Stephon Diggs or Bijan.
So my only concern is I don't know if I want to have 2 Raiders.
Yeah.
I'm a little, you know, I don't know how much I trust Jimmy G, and I certainly don't trust Brian Hoyer or is Hayner their 3rd, that rookie they drafted, you know.
Yeah.
I
think
just,
it's O'Connell, right?
Oh, Aiden O'Connell, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hayner's in New Orleans. So I just don't know if I want to invest that heavily in the Raiders, because I don't think that offense is going to be very good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can see that. My boy DJ Dallas is out here playing right now. So we should probably just turn the show off so we can all watch DJ Dallas.
So DJ's got a great opportunity to establish himself. Kenny McIntosh is out. DJ's a little bigger, has better lateral movement, a little bit faster, not a lot, but he was in the 4.5s.
Yeah.
McIntosh was in the 4.6s. You know, I like DJ to be able to hold on. I think Kenny McIntosh is, you know, who was our cat Dan Toomey. I had a chance to meet McIntosh down at the Senior Bowl, and let's just say he didn't make a favorable impression. And so I think that McIntosh has to understand, like, hey, maybe I should feel like I should have been a 2nd round pick, but I was a 6th round pick, and I need to start acting like a 6th round pick and bust my ass to make this team and earn an opportunity. I just don't, you know, some people, you know, we see people all the time that just can't quite get over that hump of feeling like they were slighted because of where they landed. They don't go put in the work like a 6th or 7th rounder or an undrafted free agent, and they can't turn that corner.
Yep. No, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let's get a little more specific. Are there certain things or certain players that you're really keeping an eye on? Obviously, you already mentioned Khalil Herbert, but are there certain players or situations that you're monitoring closely because you want to know how this plays out?
I think for me, I'm looking at a couple things. Like in Tennessee, I want to see how fast Tannehill and Hopkins develop chemistry. You know, they didn't throw the ball a lot in the past, but Burks looks pretty good. And Hopkins, if he's got something left in the tank, that can really balance that team and make it easier for Derrick Henry to last. You know, at 29 years old, I get it. He's a unicorn, but we're heading that cliff is coming. It's getting closer. It may not be here yet, but it's getting closer. Tannehill's older. Can Hopkins and Tannehill develop chemistry fast enough that it benefits Henry, that it benefits Burks, that it benefits Okonkwo? And if they can, just because, you know, Hopkins' name garners respect. Now, if he goes out there and plays like Julio Jones did, it'll go away quick. But if he goes out there and he's DeAndre Hopkins, then that whole offense, the mentality of it will really become really aggressive, like Mike Vrabel. Not necessarily aggressive deep shot, but aggressive, we're going to just pound it down your throat, whether we're running it or throwing it. So I want to see in Tennessee, how does that develop?
Yeah.
The Bears, you know, they're playing Tennessee. I want to see, does Justin Fields start to play with more anticipation and run less after he doesn't see his first read. To me, that's going to be key. And they've got some weapons, but we'll see. I'm watching Tampa because I want to see if Mike Evans can get his 10th straight 1,000-yard season. But man, if he gets 1,000 yards, he may be the only guy in Tampa catching balls, and that makes me fear for Chris Godwin because Godwin is younger and probably more talented than Evans. Just the things Evans does, he does so well.
Right.
I want to, I'm looking for those for things like that. I'm team big wide receiver. So I heard you guys talking about Sutton and Judy. And so I want to see Sutton succeed. I've liked him since he came out, and he's kind of got a raw deal a couple times. He got injured, and then came back, everything was healthy, and then he got the worst version of Russell Wilson that we've ever seen. I want to see Sutton kind of have a couple breakout seasons in a row.
Yeah. So couple guys that I have my eyes on. I'm really watching the Miami Dolphins because I want to see what's going on with Devon Achane. There's starting to be some buzz. There's starting to be some hype building up at camp. Some of the other players are talking about how electric he is, how he moves. This is a guy that on the Nerds podcast, we hyped up quite a bit. We thought we weren't overly concerned with his size. So I'm a fan of his. I am. And I thought this was a hand in glove fit for what the Miami offense, that outside zone type of scheme. I thought it was a hand in glove fit for the speed that Devon Achane has. So I am absolutely keeping that in mind, keeping an eye out on that one. Another one that I'm keeping an eye on is staying home, but I'm wanting to see Elijah Moore. I'm wanting to see what Elijah Moore does once we get, some time with Deshaun Watson, all of that. Like I'm absolutely looking at that as well. And then the third one that I'm keeping an eye on, and we're starting to already hear some things in camp, but I'm really wanting to see, does it look like, and we probably won't get Pat Mahomes enough to really get to see this for sure, but I want to see, is Sky Moore going to be that guy? Because I'm a big fan of Sky Moore. Is he going to get the work to be that top end wide receiver for Kansas City? And if he's the top wide receiver for Kansas City, that's a pretty nice team to be the top guy on.
Yeah. I late in draft season last year, I kind of moved off of Christian Watson and onto Sky Moore. And so I grabbed a couple shares of Sky Moore on some of my teams. I think Moore is in the right spot. I just don't trust Kadarius Toney. We know that Kansas City is a fairly sophisticated offense, and that Patrick Mahomes and his ad-libbing takes some getting used to. You have to develop that chemistry with him, and it's rare that it happens with a rookie. It's like right now it's avoid Rashee Rice time and wait till about week 8 or 9, and then get Rice thrown in when he's doing what Sky Moore did last year. Prepare for next year. So I like Moore. I think he could. To me, he feels like he's going to lead the wide receivers in receptions and probably yards as well.
Yeah, and if that's the case, I'm thrilled. I'd be absolutely thrilled. Jordan Heckler, he asked a little bit ago about Bijan Robinson in the first round, saying that he wouldn't draft him in the first round. So right now, ADP wise, Bijan Robinson is going as the 8th player off the board, the 4th running back. And I'm all in. Like, I get it. I get that it's scary to draft a rookie that early, but Bijan Robinson, one, you don't take a running back top 10 unless he is truly an elite talent. 2, he's going to a situation with a team that just ran the crap out of the football last year, despite it being Cordell Patterson and Tyler Algier, who are not near the talent that Bijan Robinson is. And 3, he's a really good pass catcher. So I'm absolutely all in on Bijan Robinson in the first round. I would take him The only players that I would not take ahead of, or that I would take ahead of him, I would be taking Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, and Travis Kelce. Those are the only 4 I'm 100% taking ahead of him. After that, I'm fine taking him anywhere after that. I don't know. What about you, Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, he was just like handed all of the things you look for when you are looking for a stud running back. High draft capital, fantastic athletic pedigree, fantastic production profile, a team that runs the ball a significant amount. I don't see any reason, are you going to avoid him because, he might get Breece Hall? You just can't predict injuries. And so you have to take him there, I think. He's young, he's strong, he's in a perfect situation. And I kind of like Desmond Ridder. I think Ritter's mobility is going to, while he may end up not being the answer in Atlanta, I think his mobility will allow the Falcons to keep some drives alive and give some additional chances to Bijan Robinson. Maybe it's only 20 chances over the 20 additional opportunities over the course of a season, but that's 20 opportunities.
Absolutely. So I think he's going to get the ball a lot. Here for the memes says, I'm on the clock for 1 QB full PPR rookie draft. I have Trevor, but Dak is my backup. I don't know if I want to go receiver or just take Richardson. I'm leaning to take Richardson. So in the rookie draft, I'd be curious to hear what receivers are still available, because in a rookie draft, in 1 QB, you have 2 really good quarterbacks. You really don't need a third, but I'm a big fan of taking the best available player. So if you think you can take Richardson and then either trade him or trade one of the other quarterbacks for, a high-end running back, high-end receiver, something like that, then absolutely do it. But I'd be curious to hear who the wide receivers are on the board, because I'm in a 1 QB. I'm not taking him ahead of Addison. I'm not taking him ahead of Zay Flowers. I'm not taking him ahead of Johnston. I don't know. He'd be like right in the Mingo range for me. And I'm probably still taking Mingo. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Dennis?
Richardson is a lottery ticket, because I don't think there's, when you look at the range of outcomes, I think he's going to be, not great or freaking fantastic. I'm not sure that the probability isn't on, he's a Derek Carr level mediocre quarterback. I think he's either going to be worse or he's going to be a lot better because of the rushing ability. And he only started 12 games or 14 games in college. So there's a big lack of experience, but he has a lot of tools and a lot of traits. And I think if you do take him, then you're saying, I'm willing to sell Dak cheap, because you want to get something. What are you going to get for Dak? A 3rd round pick, maybe in a 1 QB league. At this point, he's almost 30. So I don't know that you're going to get high value for Dak or for Lawrence for that matter. That's one of those. It's tough sometimes when you take the best player and you have a lot of players at a non-premium position. And in a 1 QB league, you end up with what could be 3 top 15 quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback league. And it can be hard to sell to people, because they don't have to help you out just because you drafted. So, right. But then again, there isn't this class drops off pretty quickly. So in that one, I could see the Charbonnet Mingo area is where I'm looking at it and thinking, maybe I'd probably still take Charbonnet and Mingo first.
I think I would too.
But if somebody said, no, I'm going to take Richardson, I wouldn't be like, oh, you're crazy.
Right. No, I'm absolutely with you on that. And Jordan saying he's excited for the streams this year. I appreciate that, man. Every Thursday night we're here from 9 to 11 p.m. Then Hal asked the question that is something that we kind of touched on the Dynasty Nerds podcast, but I think it's good discussing here. Will Bijan, and maybe not just Bijan, but will Bijan be good enough to get Ritter a second contract? And that's something that I think is going to be an interesting thought, because this team invested a lot in their defense. They brought in guys like Jesse Bates and Calais Campbell and different guys like that. But they brought in some really good defensive players. They have 3 elite offensive weapons in Pitts, Bijan, and Drake London. And then their offensive line, PFF has them ranked as a top 10 offensive line. So really, this entire team is set up to be good. The only question is, can Ritter be that guy? And I think that's part of the intrigue of all of this, because if this team around them performs well, Ritter is maybe going to find himself keeping this job unless they get a big-time free agent, because they're not going to be picking high enough to get a Caleb Williams, to get a Drake May, to get, so if they're picking in the teens and in the 20s because their defense and these other weapons are propping this whole team up, they might not be in a spot to get one of those top-tier quarterbacks. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of watch and evaluate this team, and specifically Desmond Ritter, because it could go a lot of different directions for this Atlanta Falcons team.
Yeah, I agree. I think, they've got 3 first-round picks and 1 second-round pick on their offensive line. Now, one of their first-round picks is a 10-year vet, but
still,
they're in a position where if they can add some more youth, good top-end offensive line youth, and some pieces to their defense, they could, because like you said, Pitts, London, and Bijan are 3 prime weapons. So what is he's going into year 2 right now, Ritter is, right?
Right.
So, and there's no fifth year, because he was what, a 4th round pick or something?
3rd round, yep.
So, they could be going into next summer looking at him and saying, we want to extend you for, 3 years and at $20 million a year, $25 million instead of the 50, because, well, we think you're good. We see you growing, and we want to tie you up for a couple more years, but not break the bank. I don't know.
Yeah.
They've got some tools there that could get him a second contract.
Absolutely. All right, let's get back on track with the preseason stuff. Dennis, what other things are you looking for during the preseason time? Is there anything else that you do during this time, whether it's, specifically with the players or the games or the situations, or even just this time of year as you're prepping for your drafts, your redrafts, your all that kind of stuff? Like, what are you doing this time of year?
So I'm starting to kind of clean up rankings, figure out, like, especially because we do redraft rankings for the Fantasy Football Roundtable show. So I'm getting my rankings ready for that, making sure my standard rankings for Dynasty Nerds are getting tidied up, getting rid of those players that are not making teams, that are getting, that are losing their spots and moving down the food chain. And then looking for targets. I look at my leagues and I try to think, well, what does this team need? Where am I in the cycle of, total rebuild to dynasty champion contender, and trying to take a look that, a lot, it's great to say, oh, well, this is when you trade for picks, but most smart dynasty owners aren't looking to trade their picks right now.
Right.
So you want to see how the teams play out and get a start. And if I think I've got a team that's ready to rebuild, I'm starting to put it in position. I'm looking to see who steps up, taking a look at pulling out the old Dynasty GM League Analyzer and saying, who are these guys that are going into the season in that 5, 6, 7 range, that if they had one more guy, it would bump them up into the 3, 4 range and make them feel good, and it would help me. And so I'm kind of starting to lay the groundwork for who I'm targeting. Am I targeting players? I'll see, if there's a player that's been injured, maybe he's a little slow coming back from an injury. Is that somebody that's worth targeting? Brees Hall, for instance, if they sign Dalvin Cook, there'll be a panic sale in some leagues. So you want to make sure you're getting ready for that stuff. If Trey Lance gets moved, is he getting a real opportunity? So I'm kind of looking for these types of things to see how can that help me. And then I'm looking kind of in preseason for guys that I may be wrong on. And a guy played tonight that, based on tonight, I might be wrong on Tank Dell.
Yeah, your team big wide receiver.
I am.
Name-wise, he fits.
Is he's built just right that he doesn't look short when he's out there. Like Deuce Vaughn looks tiny. But
Right.
Tank Dell, when you see him, unless he's next to people, he doesn't look 5'8".
No, he doesn't. And it helps that his name is Tank, so maybe he sort of fits in team big wide receiver, even though he isn't actually, but his name's Tank, so it makes him sound a lot bigger. All right. So another thing that I like to do is I kind of like to reevaluate my projections on the year once I start seeing some of these preseason things. So, as I'm watching, like tonight, I kind of thought that Chandler would be the backup, but I didn't know for sure. And so that shifts the projections that I have on some of these guys. If you see a guy that you expect to be a big time contributor and he's out there with the second team, you're like, oh, maybe I need to lower his projection a little bit for this year. So it kind of helps me figure out my projections, specifically when I do like the Fantasy Pros rankings and things like that. That kind of helps me evaluate, like, where was I a little bit off in my initial thought process? What was I missing something there? So that's one of the last things I like to do is like evaluate my projections. So, well, Dennis, that's another Thursday come and gone, my man. Tell everyone where they can find you and anything you might be working on right now.
Well, I'm just, making sure we're getting our articles out, doing the Fantasy Football Roundtable. My schedule has changed around a little bit, and so Peter and I are figuring out if we can reschedule the trade show. Tuesday nights seem to be troublesome for us now. But I'm here on Thursday nights, and I'm having a good old time getting ready to win some leagues.
Awesome, man. Well, you can find me on Twitter or whatever it's called now at Dynasty Price. We are getting dangerously close to the beginning of the season. So we will be talking more and more of the start of the fantasy season, not just prospects anymore. Now we're digging into exactly what's going to happen for this season. So I'm excited. So for myself, for Peter that was on earlier, appreciate you coming on, for Tennis Bennett, and for Heavy T behind the scenes, we'll see you guys next week.